Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escafe Online, and today we're going to be poaching fruits for desserts. It's a beautiful way to make a nice summery dessert, and poached fruits are a nice center to all plated desserts, especially restaurant quality desserts. So just with a few simple ingredients, we can make a super nice dessert that's even fat-free and gluten-free by itself. And depending on what you add to your poached fruit dessert, you can kind of make it your own and make the flavors your own. So for poaching fruit, the first thing that you need to do is make your poaching liquid. So you can use a variety of flavors and a variety of spices, and it's really whatever you like. And today the poaching liquid that I made with sugar and water, a little bit of white wine, and I put some cinnamon sticks and some vanilla and some orange rind in this. You can add things like anise or cardamom or even lemon. And people even make kind of exotic poached fruits by adding a little bit of passion fruit juice. So kind of have some fun with your poaching and let me know what flavor combinations that you come up with. The combination that I made today is a personal favorite of mine, so I thought I would make it for you because it's the flavors that I like together. And no worries if you don't want to put any wine in there, you can just put the juice and the sugar and the water. Poaching liquid is basically just a simple syrup with some flavors added to it. So keep that in mind. And also keep in mind the more sugar you add to your mixture, the more firm your fruit will be. And the same goes with the wine. The wine creates firmness too, but a lot of water will create a softer fruit. So knowing that, let's go over to the fruit that I have poaching on the stove that I got ready earlier. So I've got some pears and some apples and an apple in here, and I've got my poaching liquid. And what I did is I made my mixture, my water and my sugar, my white wine, my cinnamon and my orange, and I brought it to a boil. And then I brought it over here onto the stove, and then I added the pears and the apples after I peeled them. I didn't take the cores out because I like to do that after my fruit is poached. You can do it ahead of time. You can cut them in half and core them that way, but I wanted to keep my fruits whole, and I'm going to be coring them after I actually take them out of the liquid. So knowing that, I'm going to be taking one of these pears out because I kind of see it's ready to go. And I also like to leave the stems on too, because I think that they're just beautifully looking with the stems on. And it's okay if you can't find your fruits with the stems on them. They look equally as nice. But I think when you're adding the stems, it just makes it a little more authentic. So after we add our fruits to our poaching liquid, I've simmered these slowly. And what I did is I put a weight on them. So I took some parchment paper, and be careful because it's a little warm. And then what I did is I took a lid from a smaller pot, and I'm just weighting these down. And this way we know that these are going to be submerged completely, and they're going to be completely cooked through. So keep in mind when you're poaching your fruits, they usually take, like a whole fruit like this is going to take about an hour to 15 minutes to about 45 minutes. The riper your fruit is, the less time you're going to be poaching it. So you need to keep an eye on these a little bit. And a really good way to tell is by poking your fruit with a small knife, like a paring knife, and if you feel some resistance, if the knife is sticking in a little bit, then you know that your fruit is not quite done. But if it's coming out clean and the fruit feels tender, then you know that it's done. And don't limit yourself to poaching apples and pears. There's so many fruits that you can poach, but you really want to stay away from fruits like bananas and berries. They just are more tender to begin with, so they really don't poach well. But if you wanted to add a little extra flavor to like a strawberry, you could kind of blanch it in the poaching liquid, which is a little bit different. But any of the stone fruits work really nice. Peaches or nectarines or even apricots are a little bit more delicate. So if you're doing those, just be very careful with them. And remember that Escoffier poached peaches for his very famous dessert that he made for the opera singer Nellie Melba. It's a dessert peach Melba. He poached his peach halves with some wine and some sugar, and then he served that over ice cream with raspberry sauce for this very famous opera singer. And today it's a dessert that's used widely and so well known, and it's just a nice remembrance of Escoffier. So back to our poaching. So like I said, if you're not going to be using some wine, you can just use your simple syrup mixture and for some fruit juices. And you can also, I've used white wine, and you can also use red wine in this mixture too. So my mixture is simmering and I've got it covered so my fruit is weighed down. So let's go ahead and take a look at a fruit that I poached earlier. And I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions because I'm not hearing anything. So yesterday, I poached one of my pears and I soaked it overnight in some cranberry juice concentrate to give it kind of a ruby look to it. And this is a nice change up if you're not going to be using red wine, which will add these deep colors, these nice rednesses to your fruit. So definitely try this. So I've got my pear that I poached yesterday that I soaked overnight in my cranberry juice concentrate. And now we're just going to gently core the fruit. You can even serve these whole the way that they are. You don't have to take out the core, but I like to take it out with my paring knife and just gently going around. And my knife is pointed towards the center because we're just trying to get the core out carefully. So we don't want to puncture the pear. So if you do this delicately, then we have our core coming out. So now we're ready to plate this dessert. I like to use gloves when I'm touching my fruits because they're so sticky and wet. So a nice thing to do with a pear that you've hollowed or an apple that you've hollowed the core out, you can fill it with your pastry cream, which is from one of the assignments, and it's also in the recipe database. And you can also fill the cavity with some fruits and berries too, and especially dried fruits go really nice with pears and apples. And we have a question.
Did you core the apples or pears before poaching? If so, did you do it from the bottom? And what type of red wine did you poach in?
We have a few questions. The first question is, did I core the pears and apples before I poached them? I didn't. I just gently took the core out now with a small paring knife. And then I filled the cavity with a little bit of pastry cream, and it's ready for my plate up. You can core these ahead of time if you like, or you can even serve them with the core in with no filling in them, whatever you like. And I just like to core mine after they're cooked because they're so much easier and I don't find myself kind of poking through the fruit. So this is a super beautiful looking little dessert, and we really haven't done much to it. I just poached it in the liquid. I let it work on its own, and then I soaked it in the cranberry juice concentrate overnight, and you can get the same effect with red wine. You can use red wine in your poaching liquid, or you can soak yours in red wine overnight. So knowing that, let's decorate our plate a little bit. This is a nice dessert, and even without the pastry cream on the inside, it's a really nice, light dessert, fat-free, and definitely gluten-free dessert too. So let's go ahead and decorate our plate a little bit. I've got some creme anglaise sauce, which is one of the assignments, and I'm just going to be putting some on the plate. And poached fruits have been made in restaurants for so long. They're just a classic, and a lot of people really enjoy them when they see them. And you'll be sure to dazzle your friends and family with these. So I'm just doing one line of creme anglaise, And I'm doing 1 line of raspberry sauce, which is also one of your assignments. And I'm just going to take the tip of my paring knife. You can also do this with a toothpick. And I'm just going to gently swirl the sauces together a little bit, giving just a little bit different effect and dressing the plate up a little bit. So the sauces that you're making in your assignments are the perfect consistency to do something like this. And I also like chocolate sauce with my pears. And what's super beautiful too on just a regular poached pear, you can just cover like one side of it with chocolate sauce. Just pour it on and let it run down. It's a super beautiful effect too. And I like to do some dotting with my chocolate sauce. And these squeeze bottles, they come in handy if you're working in a restaurant or at home. But you want to make sure that you clean off the tops every night before you put them away. Otherwise, you kind of get some debris on them. So now that we have our sauce on the plate, let's go ahead and put a little bit of fruit on here and kind of finish it off. And we have another question.
Can these be made ahead of time and stored, and if so, for how long can they be stored for?
The question is, can these be made ahead of time and stored? Absolutely, you can make them the day before. You can even make them a couple of days before. And ideally, when you're finished poaching the pears, like in the liquid that I showed you on the stove, it's good to let them cool in the liquid, and you can even store them overnight in the liquid. So it's just going to enhance that flavor a little bit. And then when you go to serve your poached pears, you can take a little bit of the liquid and you can reduce it and use that for a sauce. It should coat the back of your spoon just like the creme anglaise when you make it, or you can use some of the sauces that I've shown. But definitely it's super nice dessert to make ahead of time, and it'll make things easier if you're working in a restaurant or if you're having guests over for dinner or even lunch. So let's just put a little bit of fruit on this plate. And we have another question.
This is in regards to your plating. I noticed I used 3 chocolate dots that were different sizes. Why?
In regards to my plating, I have a question why I use 3 different dots in 3 different sizes. Because typically when you're doing things like plate ups, you're going to want to stick with, the general rule of thumb is to stick with odd numbers. And I kind of like the ascending order of the dots with the largest one and then going smaller. So your plate ups are going to be a representation of your own artistic appeal, so have fun with them. Kind of, you can make some that you find in books or that you've seen, kind of copy them and then make your own flair. But typically we're using things in odd numbers. They just look a little more artistic on the plate, but that doesn't mean that's not a rule. That's a rule that you can't break. And sometimes baking and pastry and culinary, they're about kind of pushing the envelope and breaking the rules a little bit sometimes. So try even numbers too, okay? So super beautiful presentation here. I've got a little bit of mint that I'm going to be putting by the pear with my fresh fruits. And I also have a little apricot that I'm going to be putting on here too. So just, use your imagination and make your plates colorful. And for your plate ups for your assignments, have some fun with them. Use some colorful things, especially like with the brownie. You don't have to cut them up and dust them with powdered sugar. You can even do a nice little plate up presentation. So keep all of that in mind, and let's go ahead and plate up one more of these pears while we're here and while we have everything. So we're going to be setting this aside. Everyone take a good look at it. Super easy dessert. You really didn't have to bake anything. You just poached the pear, soaked it in some nice raspberry, some nice cranberry concentrate overnight. Beautiful color to it. So we have one of the pears that was poaching earlier. And this pear is going to be served warm. I took it out of the poaching liquid and I let it cool a little bit on the plate because I wanted to serve it right away and I want to serve it warm, whereas the other pear is being served cold. And you don't only have to serve these pears whole, you can slice them up. So we're going to show the coring again too. So I've got my pear that I poached and I didn't core it, I just took off the skin And I saved the stem. I kind of trimmed around it. You have to be careful with your knife because you can easily cut this off if you want to save it. Otherwise, just trim around it. And I'm going to take my paring knife and I'm going to be holding the pear, and then I'm just gently going around the core. You can kind of feel it with the tip of the knife, and just be careful with this. And I'm just rotating the pear around. And I'm just pointing the tip in. And like I said, just be careful. Just when you're doing things like this, just do a little bit at a time. And don't worry if it's not a perfect, so it's not going to be seen. I like to take these cores out because I just think that they're easier for people to eat. Not only are they nice to fill the little cavities, but they're nice for eating too, because you can definitely like spoon or fork through it. So to get this pear nice and glossy, I'm just going to be taking a little bit of apricot glaze that I prepared earlier. It's a little bit warm. And I'm going to be dipping my pear in the glaze. And this is just going to give it a little bit of a shiny effect. And it's going to make it a little bit more finished. And you can do this too with the poaching liquid that you have reduced for your sauce. Then I'm just going to dry it off a little bit. And then we're just going to put it on our plate. We have a super pretty pear that has a nice sheen to it. It's a nice plate up. It'd be nice for any restaurant or even at home. And pears are great too, like apples. They just go with a variety of different flavors. So I've got some mango sauce here too. So we're going to go ahead and use a little bit of mango sauce. And then we're just going to put just a little pull of the chocolate sauce right by the pear. And I've got some blueberries that I picked up earlier that are super nice this time of year. And we're just going to sprinkle some of these right on our sauce. And like I said, your plate ups are a reflection of you and your creativity and your work, so have fun with them. Make sure that your sauces are thick enough so they're holding their shapes. And we're just going to put a few blueberries around the plate. And I've got some oranges that I cut earlier. I'm just going to put a few oranges on here too for a nice orange color. Very pretty, refreshing looking dessert. And if we don't have any questions, we're getting ready to wrap up today. And what's really cute about these stems being on these fruits, you can even put a little piece of mint leaf up by the stem. And then it's going to look like the pear that came off the tree a little bit. So have fun with your poached fruits. And we have another question.
What type of dessert does the poached fruits go best with?
The question is what type of dessert does the poached fruit go best with? Well, as you can see, it's great on its own as like the main component for a plated dessert. You can also do these on trays for a buffet. And you can pair them up with pretty much any pastry. If you wanted to put something else on the plate, a nice little scoop of fresh homemade sorbet or ice cream would be really nice. And when it comes to pears and apples and our fall type of fruits, some of the flavors that go well with these are chocolate and cinnamon, of course, and our orange and our lemon, and sour cream and buttermilk also go nice with these, and chocolate too. So you could put maybe a little brownie, like from one of your assignments, a little brownie square or wedge you could also serve on a plate like this. So be creative with your flavors and don't be afraid to try different things. So try the poached fruits, and definitely try the peaches and the cherries together if you have a chance. Super nice combination. It's a nice summertime favorite. So if there aren't any more questions, we're going to wrap up for today. And don't forget, we have Chef Thomas here at 9:30 a.m. every Tuesday with his culinary live session. And if you know Spanish at all, or if you want to tune in, Cesar does the Spanish session on Wednesdays at 9:30. So check us out, and I'll see you next time, and have a great weekend. Bye.